Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship and innovation and empower entrepreneurial ecosystems in the region. And in doing so, we aim to enhance the entrepreneurial skills and employability of young people through an apprenticeship-based model that the organization is offering. Accelerators and Angels is the first action of Innovation Momentum, and basically by facilitating discussions and debates leading to commitments, actions, and ultimately outcomes, the trilogy envisions to become a lever and catalyst for the further development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Cyprus. The trilogy will bring together various actors in the local entrepreneurship ecosystem, and in order to exchange ideas and find new and creative ways to fight current issues and promote collaboration. Today is the second event of the trilogy, is the second part of the trilogy, and I'd like to welcome our speakers, Antigoni, the moderator, and the three panelists, Andreas, George, and Moyses. Thank you all for accepting our invitation and dedicating your time to contribute to the local ecosystem's advancement. We very much appreciate your support. And now to everyone, I hope you enjoyed the networking session if joined it at the first half an hour at the event. Let me give you a couple of insights about the platform. So we've got on the right hand side the chat icon where you can just press it and write your message, your questions, so we can all see what you want to ask, and we will ask either in the conversation or at the end of it, at the dedicated session. There is going to be a 20 minutes questions and answers at towards the end of the event. So for now, the panel will be 1 hour and then 20 minutes for questions before we wrap up. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else you need to know in terms of the platform at the moment. What I would like to mention is that we would like to receive your feedback, because this is our first attempt to organize online events, and we will share with you in the chat a link that will allow you to give us feedback. You don't have to bother with it at the moment, but at the end of the event, or maybe after the event, please share your feedback with us so we can improve ourselves. At this point, let me introduce our panel moderator, who is Antigoni Komodiki. She's the CEO of Junior Achievement in Cyprus. Junior Achievement is a great initiative which aims to help to promote, let's say, innovation at the younger ages. I will let Antigoni tell us more about what they do in Junior Achievement, and what they do and what their aims are about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Cyprus. Antigoni and the rest of the panel, many thanks again for accepting our invitation, and the stage is yours.
Hello. Do you listen to me okay? I mean, is everything okay? Because It was frozen for a minute. So hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you so much, Marie, for the invitation to moderate this very interesting discussion. What I mentioned earlier when we were backstage is that we hope to be a friendly discussion where everyone can ask questions and leave this meeting knowing much more than earlier on what do accelerators and angels offer to startups, and what should startups know in terms of how they would prepare themselves when they get to the accelerators and angels to ask for help. I would like to say a few things about where I work. I work for Junior Achievement Cyprus, the biggest actually organization in the world that promotes entrepreneurship skills, financial literacy, and work readiness in young people. We start from very, very young age. That is in the sometimes from pre-primary school, and we reach the age of 30 years old, that is university students. We have many, maybe more than 100 different programs around the world. In Cyprus at the moment, we offer 7 different programs with all the people here in the panel offering their help. Andreas Koupparis is also a member of our board of directors. Helping the organization going forward. George Vu and Moyseos serving from the place of mentoring. Thank you also. And yes, this is what we do. And we hope that we prepare the people to have better ideas and a more concrete mindset when they come later to your organizations. So again, thank you, Marie and the Innovation Momentum for the invitation. Before I start, I would like to introduce the panel and also give them the chance to say a few things about themselves, things that maybe it is not written down anyway, things that they would like to share with the audience. I will start with Moyseos. Moyses is the operations manager at Gravity Ventures Incubator, which is based in Nicosia, Cyprus. Moyses, do you want to say
good
a few things
about yourself? Everyone, thank you. Hello.
We hear.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Moyses, and I represent Gravity Ventures Incubator. So today I will be talking from the perspective of an incubator and, of course, the investor. So at Gravity, we support entrepreneurs on a daily basis from idea level all the way to investment readiness, and, of course, until they enter the market. Our incubator is powered from CYRIC, the Certified Business Innovation Center in Cyprus. That means that we receive all the technical and the necessary support that embraces the entrepreneurship journey of every entrepreneur that joins our incubation program. So we combine both the development of innovative ideas plus the value that they need to raise during their entrepreneurial journey in order to enter the market. In a nutshell, this is what we are going to discuss today. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Moyses. We will be happy to listen to what you have to say to our startups. Andreas Koupparis. Hello, Andreas is the CEO and chairman, or am I mistaken? Of the Cyprus Business Angel Network, which again is based in Nicosia. Andrea, please, the word is yours.
Thank you, Antigoni. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know it's a special day for us Cypriots today, but I'm sure not having your cameras on, you can enjoy your barbecues as well as the chat we are having here. Unfortunately, we cannot do this. Anyway, like Antigoni said, my name is Andreas Koupparis. I am the founder, actually, and currently CEO and chairman of the Cyprus Business Angels Network, CYBAN. CYBAN is the only investors network that operates currently in Cyprus. We're a full member of the European Business Angels Network, EBAN, and the Global Business Angels Network, GBAN. CYBAN has been operational since 2013. This year, we have approximately close to 50 members now. Business angels are usually high net worth individuals who have the knowledge, experience, and willingness, and of course the funds to invest in early stage companies or startups. Personally, I have a technical and business background. I have been an entrepreneur. I have founded 3 technical startups many years ago, and I have sold all 3 of them. I've been in the corporate world. I've been the managing director of Hewlett-Packard here in Cyprus for a number of years, and since 2014 I am a full-time investor. I've personally invested in 11 companies. I actively participate also in the strategic mentoring of the companies. I participate as a director in the boards of directors, in most of the boards of directors. CYBAN has been investing since 2015, and we have invested totally approximately 5 million in 15 companies until today. Most of them are still operational, still alive. At least 13 of them are. And we hope that we have an interesting discussion, and I can offer you my experience the last few years in being in this small but active ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Andreas. I think you are doing a great job, especially in a small island where everything comes a bit later than in the rest of the world. Hopefully this is changing, I believe. I mean, in the current times. And before we proceed to the discussion, I would also like to welcome George Wu, a person I admire, a non-stop entrepreneur, I could say. I'm saying this because I have heard some of his stories earlier in some of JA programs. George Wu is the CEO of the Mighty Kitchen, a company that started 2 years ago. George.
Yeah, just over.
And okay, and it is you are based, or the company is based in Larnaca?
No, the company. It's strange. It's funny because Larnaca doesn't get a lot of attention. I guess even though the ecosystem's small in Cyprus, it's mainly around Moyseos and Lefkosia get most of the action. So yeah, we're trying to build something out of here, this corner of the island now. So yeah. Same thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be fun talking about this with the guys here as well and yourself. Like you said, so the Mighty Kitchen is a food technology company. We use data modeling and materials chemistry to make delicious, fibrous, plant-based poultry products and ingredients. So we're really focused on like the future of food and where the unsustainable nature that we've kind of evolved into of the way we produce and cultivate food is going, and how we can offer solutions for that. And Antigoni mentioned as well, so for me, my background is, I think I sit on the other side of, well, not like we're on the same side of the conversation, but on like the side of the entrepreneur. So I've gone from like the last 10 years from corporate to base level positions, to managing international marketing positions, to relearning and going into full-blown technology startups, now to food technology startups. Had some like moderate success, some chronic failure, like a lot of fun in the process, met good people, raised money, lost money. So it's going to be fun to, be in this conversation in general and see, what we can offer and how we can offer value to the people listening.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you, George. So let's start this conversation. I would also ask people, the audience who want to learn more about how we are using the terms in this discussion, they can download always the glossary from the website of the Innovation Momentum. I will stand at accelerators for the moment, and I would say that after a little research that I have made, I've seen that they initiated in Europe in 2009, a few years earlier in the US. So let's say that they are operating for the last 11 to 12 years in Europe. In Cyprus, I suppose that they came a bit later. Around 2014-15, we had a few initiatives, and then 2017, I think we had a boom, a few more initiatives again on accelerating and incubating startups, to the supporting stuff. So let's say that in Cyprus, we are doing this for the last 5 to 7 years. Do you think that we have achieved something so far? Andrea, I'm going to give the word to you first to listen. How do you see the ecosystem at the moment? And if you think that there was a progress in the last 5 to 7 years.
Okay. I think a lot has been done the last few years, even though a lot still needs to be done. I think we are still at the very early stage, what people call an activation stage, if you like, in terms of an ecosystem, and a lot needs to be done to improve the situation. One of the unfortunate things that we have to face is the size of our market. And being a small market, everything has small numbers behind it, unfortunately. The number of startups that have been reaching us the last, let's say, 5 years or 6 years that we've been operational is very limited compared to the number of startups in of course, larger markets. And this makes, has a chain effect. When you have a small number of founders, a small number of startups, consequently, you have less interest from investors, you have less success stories, so less people are motivated to start their own business. That makes, again, less investors interested, and it's a chain effect that unfortunately has to do with the size of our market. So even though a lot has been done, I think this is a problem that we will be facing. One of the ways I think to overcome this is to find ways to allow or incentivize startups from the region around Cyprus, at least, if not other parts of the world, to come to Cyprus, move to Cyprus, and inject, if you like, both quantitatively and qualitatively the ecosystem with additional startups, additional businesses that will motivate more investors to come forward, because a lot of funds are available. It's just that people don't have the experience, or don't have the knowledge, or don't have the right incentives to divert those funds into early stage businesses. And this is a vicious circle that somehow needs to be broken. And our thinking is that, and our ideas is that this kind of vicious cycle can only be broken if we inject it from other parts of the world into Cyprus. But answering your specific question, I think, yes, a lot has been done. A lot has been done by the limited resources that we have here. And a lot has been done with very little help from the state, at least until now. All the initiatives that have started from private sector initiatives. So, we also believe that a lot can be done by the state as well. We have a lot of ideas. We've been nagging politicians and key state officials about our ideas, and we hope that we can at least achieve something along these lines from the state.
Thank you, Andrea. And I think this is the reason that the Innovation Momentum team invited the chief scientists next week. So maybe to ask them if they are going to promote this more and fund it, of course, because it is always a matter of getting funds to proceed. Thank you again. And Moyses, what about you? How do you see the situation in Cyprus the last few years on accelerating startups?
So first of all, Mr. Andreas has highlighted some very valid and important key points. Imagine that we established officially Gravity Incubator in 2016, but CYRIC as a company was supporting entrepreneurs since day one of foundation day, let's say 2012. So we saw and we identified the need that there should be a structured process and a program to host all these entrepreneurs on the island. Now, going one step back, the short answer is a lot has been done, that's correct, and a lot more has to be done, of course, but we should go, to my opinion, a step before that and set the foundations on the right level, because we need first to educate these people what it means to launch a startup, what it means acceleration, what it means incubation, and what it means launching a normal business. It's four different things, and if we start from educating, this of course cannot happen overnight, but there is this constant educational, let's say, and lead generation activities that are done all over the island to start educating people to pivot to the right direction and the path they really want to follow. For the last, I've been in Cyprus and working at Gravity Ventures 1 year before the establishment, so that is 2015. I can say with confidence that as time goes by, we are all more educated and more experienced and more able to filter and engage and let's say support the ecosystem in a more mature way that it was, of course, 5 years before. But still, there are a lot that need to be done to set the foundations solid for our ecosystem. One thing for sure is that Cyprus has an excellent human capital. I mean, the potential for me is huge when it comes to the people, but we need to give them the right infrastructure, the right mindset, and the means to generate the value that we expect.
Thank you, Moyses. I totally agree with you about infrastructure. I think it's the most, maybe the most important thing we need to develop. We have the education. I think the last few years, I'm not talking only about JA, there are other organizations who are doing the same. They are trying to develop exactly this mindset, but there is a lot to be done on a later stage, the stage where the startup comes to you first, and then to angels. Obviously, this is the progress that a startup should follow. But before we get to define what each stage includes and what is it exactly, I'd like to go to George and ask him if he thinks that there was indeed a progress in what accelerators, incubators, and investors are offering in startups. And how did you feel the whole procedure as an entrepreneur who asked for help?
Yeah, I think first of all, the guys make good points. Like, I can't argue, I think, with anything that's been said so far. It's accurate, it's fair. I think maybe both said as well, like, there's an education process for all of us. So 7 years ago, there were people who were trying to help who didn't really have the knowledge and background to help, but they had the goodwill to, they were trying. There were people who were trying to get into the ecosystem and build things, but they didn't have like the tools and the knowledge and the background to do so. So when these things were happening, like, this is like early days, I think 2012, 2013, I think we're focusing on Cyprus, and it's important because it's a Cyprus-based conversation. But I think like one of the biggest things I started to realize early on is you have to treat Cyprus as like as a city, and like perhaps Europe as the country, and something like that, because it's closer, London to Lefkosia is closer than New York to San Francisco, and yet we have this like countrywide initiative. It's a much bigger country, but if we start treating it as a little bit like open up our perspective and say, okay, like, knowledge, support, money, whatever doesn't exist in my backyard, I should pursue it. That's not a reason to stop. That's not a reason to not do something. And so like that was like our story early on. I think one of the first companies I founded here as well with my co-founders at the time, we went to an accelerator actually in Copenhagen. We raised from investors in the UK and Germany. It's just like, it's a process, and other times we didn't raise, going forward. So I think it's important to source knowledge, resources from where they're available. Like, we're super connected. There aren't really barriers that existed for, and we go non-tech, obviously companies like decades ago, it was different. Now the infrastructure exists and there's no real excuses. I think on a maturity level, I also think like young entrepreneurs here as well. So I love the thing about, so JA exists, I think at a college level, perhaps. I don't know. So this is maybe something that I don't know about what happens exactly in colleges, but I know that I think there are like innovation and entrepreneurship courses within larger business courses. I don't know how much mindset is worked on in that kind of structure. I don't know if there are like boot camp type, summer camps that would be great to, almost like we're talking about accelerators, like a college-based accelerator, like as a final project, like to build something. I don't know if we do enough of this stuff, and I think this stuff really helps. So getting your hands dirty, like building something, trying to sell something, which is, again, like, this isn't supposed to be a plug for JA, but being involved, like, I understand that they're encouraged to do that, and I think that's super important because, again, one thing that people, when people ask me as well about stuff, or when we were just generally in conversations, I think people they default to funds as being their blocker, when it very rarely is at this stage. Like 2, 3, 5,000, you can put it together and build a product and go and try and sell something and grab a few of your whatever friends or start building a team and create something that then you can go to Moyses or to Andreas and say, like, look, I've invested my time, my money, this is what we've built, these are our customers, or not, or these are our users, or this is just some great technology that we're working on. Because we need to understand that we need to offer, comes both ways. So the entrepreneur needs to have something of value for the investor to invest their time and money in. And I think this is it. So like to stop my rambling, I think like I agree with the education at all levels, super important. But I think also there are really tangible things we can do. So I think that's the positive side of this, that there are really things we can just jump straight into existing infrastructure and build in, and it'll push us forward a lot.
Thank you, George. Yes, we totally agree with you. There are still things to be done, but we also need the the effort from the startups to build something before they get to all these stages. So I'm going to give you also I have my own view on what is an incubator and an accelerator and what is the difference. And I would like to give you the word to say, Moyses, what is exactly the difference between an accelerator and an incubator, and when is someone ready to get to the angels, to the investment stage, please?
How much time do I have? So, okay, starting from 2015, there was a common misconception. People were using the different terms, and in their heads they had the same thing. It was the co-working space, acceleration, and the incubation. It's totally different things. So I will focus today in acceleration and incubation. First of all, we have the physical place and then the process. They are different in every way. When we're talking about acceleration, we're talking about a cohort program, very structured, very rigorous, and it has one goal, a rapid validation of the idea. So in 6 to 8 weeks, you need to rapidly evaluate your idea in every aspect, if it's feasible, business-wise, marketing-wise, product-wise, technology-wise, and receive specific mentoring from the experts in the field until you reach, let's say, the final day of the demo day of the accelerator, where you pitch to investors. You expose your idea to the investors. This is a rapid validation of the product. So the incubation, on the other side, it's a longer journey of commitment. So when it comes to the acceleration, you are in a space where you work with your team and probably interact with other mentors and people in the room, on the physical space. When we are in the incubator, it means that you have already passed this phase. You need your own space, you need your own mentors, you need to focus on developing the actual technology, on securing the actual intellectual property, on solving all the real-world problems of the product that is going to be launched in the market, and you're talking business. So it demands commitment. The average incubation time in Europe is 3.7 years. In Israel is 3.5 years, and Gravity is approximately now close to 4 years. I mean, the most extended scenario. So you can imagine that it demands commitment, huge effort, ups and downs, and you don't really know what is coming to you the next day. So we're talking about, on the one side, the acceleration, the rapid validation of the idea, lots of information accumulated in 3 months. You validate your product, you probably get invested with a small amount to proceed to the next stage. The next stage is the incubation stage. So acceleration does what it says, it accelerates. Incubation also does what it says, it incubates. So you need the time and the effort and the dedication and all these different, let's say, aspects of your idea, product, or service to be developed properly, to be consumer ready. Because the goal to exit, to go to the post-incubation period is to survive. So if you want to survive, you need to sell a product. If you want to sell a product, the product needs to be finalized. It's simple as that in plain words.
Okay, thank you. And I suppose that after these two phases, they get to you, Andreas.
Hopefully, yes. I'll go one step earlier and say that even though I totally agree with Moyses about the distinction, on the other hand, not everybody needs acceleration. It depends on the company, on the team, on the stage, on the idea. It depends on a lot of things. But yes, acceleration programs offer, or as the name suggests, accelerates the process of getting your product or your service into the market. And of course, what it also does, it increases your investment readiness. So it also, a big part of the acceleration process or program, prepares the team, the startup team, the entrepreneurs to face investors, to increase their readiness to pitch, agree, and accept investment. Because to us, the difficult part of the whole process starts once you receive the investment, because that's when the real life issues come into play, when you need to actually scale up your business, actually face real numbers and real numbers of customers. But yes, to answer your question, yes, this is the stage where normally startup teams should knock on our door and present their business idea to us. Like I said, not everybody needs acceleration, but if companies go through an accelerator, this is where we come in at the end of the program.
Okay, and George, I'm coming to you to ask you, as an entrepreneur, what is your experience in either of those stages that we have mentioned? And if you can go back to the initial idea that you had, share with us, please, how you started, what came next, and what was your journey throughout these stages?
Okay. I've actually been personally around the accelerator block, in that sense, because I've been part of teams that have been in accelerators in Denmark, the US, Cyprus, one across Europe, in general. So we have different methodologies, I think, different teams kind of coaching us and so on. I would say to go back to when we were at our newest, in that sense, the first idea, like you're saying. So again, this is from the not knowing perspective. I think even at the beginning of that journey, we started putting down ideas to work on, right? So you need something to get started on. And so dedicated a lot of time after work in our spare time, thinking of something to dedicate some time to. But to be honest, I'd love to say we blueprinted it in the best way, and we went out and got some customers, and then we ended up needing a nudge from a competition. It was when Startup Live ran a competition in Cyprus at the time, a 2-day event, and we kind of got our validation from finishing in third place in that. We got on the winners podium and got a bit of a nudge from people around us saying, hey, you should pursue this, you should go for this. And so then we started looking for accelerators that would fit us. Again, the right way now. There's no wrong way, I guess, but a better way for me, I think, looking back, would have been, let's build something, let's build something, let's test it, let's see where we are, and so on. But at the same time, accelerators kind of fit this stage of your life cycle, so it's not a huge reach. So we ended up getting in short story. We ended up getting into a pretty good accelerator in Copenhagen called Startup Bootcamp. And it was a bit of a culture shock. So I think I came from, I had done other jobs before, but I was coming from corporate, although I was entrepreneurial when I was younger. It was at the end of my 4 or 5 year corporate journey. And so we went into this environment where it was every day, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It matters what you do now. I remember one of the first comments when we went there as well, when everyone says about have an idea to get started kind of, but don't get too attached to your original, you hear people, it's cliche, but when you say I'm not sharing my idea because someone will steal my idea. Over the first day we got there, the guys said to us, guys, your idea is shit. It's terrible. But we really like the team. So let's work on this, let's build something. And we were, from that mindset of like, we're going to sell this, cause it's a great idea. We're going to sell this in a year kind of thing. When you're raw and fresh, you think that way. But I think, look, the common thing across accelerators that I've been part of and the learnings we've had is like to really kind of embrace the uncertain nature of the journey that you're on. So be willing to like really test things, see if they work, test them with users, with customers. If they don't work, throw them away. Don't become too attached to anything, I think, at the beginning, because it's so volatile. Like you need to be able to adapt, and sometimes your whole business moves to the side or in a completely different direction because you discover stuff that you didn't know at the beginning. So I just think like this process of being super nimble and adaptive at the beginning is so important. And I think maybe not enough entrepreneurs are willing to be that at the beginning, because we're human, right? We get attached to what we think is the next great thing, and also we start blueprinting it out in our heads in a way, like how it's going to be. So just being adaptive, being willing to be part of a process. I think the good accelerators as well, they do that. They work on the people a lot. So like somebody told me when we went into our first accelerator, they said, look, two reasons you go into an accelerator. It's like the network, who they can put you in touch with, not only investors, but people, industry professionals, people who can help you financially, technologically, through insight, connections, and for the quality of the accelerator itself, the methodology that they employ. Like, will they make you a better entrepreneur, when you've been through those 3 months? So these are really the things that I feel like on a personal level I've learned along the way, and also for people who, if you go to a second accelerator, because I think this is also like this is funny, maybe this is a step ahead, but I remember when we went to a second accelerator for another company, there's also that feeling that, like also with, I don't know if it's a school kind of thing where you think you know this because you've done it before, but that's completely wrong, because I think we missed, and on a personal level, I missed out maybe on a few things because I brushed over things that I thought I knew. But every business is different, every cycle is different, so you need to go in fresh and like respect the process and respect yourself kind of to put in the effort and try and make something happen. Yeah.
So in each stage there is something to learn, huh?
Yeah, for sure. You have to be open to learning it. Wow. Yeah.
And it always depends on the framework that the accelerator is based, and also to what the product is, I suppose. So, most of your... Yes, please.
And just to highlight important things, George already mentioned them. It's very important for someone that joins an accelerator or an incubator to understand the journey that his company has to follow to raise a series of funding rounds and to understand the potential and have the global perspective, because nobody would accept something that is, let's say, only for Cyprus or only for Greece or whatever. And the second thing that's very important is George said that while he was talking, but it's something that someone who sees from the investor perspective is something that he's looking for, and we've been discussing this over the years. Accelerators and incubators and investors, they do not invest solely on your ideas, they invest in you. This is what George said without knowing, I think, what he was talking. It's not just the idea might pivot, might change over time. You will need to prioritize other things. You will need to go a bit around the idea, but mostly you invest in the person, in the individual, the entrepreneur profile. This is very important, and I can see, for example, in George and the way he sees things and the way he elaborates afterwards the experience that he had through these various programs. It's very important, and they have a very positive reflection from the investor side.
Yes, Andreas, please.
So I know that you're getting ready for your next question, Antigoni, getting the pass from Moyses now. But before you do that, I also have a point I'd like to make. I've also seen, I want to combine this with a question that I already see on the question list, that if we believe that universities in Cyprus provide enough knowledge for founders, especially in MBA programs, I think that's the big difference of accelerators from the academic education that you get. And because I always tell people that come to us that being an entrepreneur or learning entrepreneurship, it's like learning to ride a bicycle. I always make that comparison. The reason I do that is that when I was teaching my younger son a few years ago to ride his bicycle, I caught myself giving instructions very similar to the things that I tell younger entrepreneurs that come to us. For example, he was asking me questions like, it's too narrow, I'm going to fall. And I said, no, you're not going to fall. He said, why? And I couldn't explain why, because you need to get on the bike and feel why you're not going to fall. And I was telling him, don't turn the wheel on the right, because the bike won't turn on the right, you just fall. He said, how am I going to turn right? And I said, you need to tilt your body a little bit to the right. But he said, if I tilt, I will fall. And I said, no. And he was asking me why, and I couldn't explain why, because it's not something, you cannot read a book about being an entrepreneur or riding a bicycle and then you get on the bike and you ride it. You actually need to fall a few times, get back up on your bike, try something different until you get it right. And this is exactly, I think, one of the things that the accelerator does. It actually accelerates that experience that you have. That's something that the educational system cannot do that. The educational system, like an MBA at the university, to answer the question, gives you the basis of knowledge that you need. But to real life is very different, and the acceleration program is one step towards facing that real life and increases your readiness to face real life issues as an entrepreneur. So that's what I wanted to add to this.
You're totally right, because also we at JA, and as far as I know, all the experience, all the educational programs, the entrepreneurial educational programs all over the world are experiential. So you need to experience the whole procedure in order to understand what is the risk, to take the risk, the responsibility, the initiative, and all this, to develop all these skills that are needed to go further. So yes, I'm watching the questions, but they are part of some of the questions I have for later. And what I would like to ask, and I think this is the right moment, is what exactly do you need? And I take the hint from George earlier and from Moyses. What exactly do you see, and what do you evaluate the most when a startup is coming to you? And I'm gonna give the word first to Moyses, as he's just before the angels. So please, Moyses.
Okay. The last 5 years, I think I have interacted approximately with more than 400 entrepreneurs, not in Cyprus, but also on the European and also in the USA, from various events that we have worked and participated through the network. And I believe that the entrepreneur profile, as we say, is an equation with multiple parameters. The most critical things for me, based on literature, the average successful entrepreneur is someone who is more than 35 years old. He's been in the industry. He has determination. He has a know-how on the subject, and he's mature enough to drive a business. Apart from all of these, I would say it's the character. The profile of the entrepreneur has to do with the capacity on the specific expertise that he's dealing with, the experience, and then you come to the mental, let's say, competences of the individual. It's not a side job. It's not you need to be able, I think George might be more able to explain, from his side, but it's setting the profile of the entrepreneur. That doesn't have to do with his idea or his product, but with his character.
Okay, fair enough. We understand what you're saying.
It has to do with the technical. Yes.
Okay, character involves many things. So it involves personality, and it involves the skills and the intentions and the ethics. So character is a kind of the full. It's the whole person, if I could use this phrase. So you actually seek for the package, if I understood well.
It's the package, and it's very hard to find the package. Statistically, we follow up 1 every 50 applications, not from Cyprus. We receive applications from Europe and the MENA region. But I have case studies now, for example, Capsule Skateboards, a leading skateboard that has more than 200,000 views on YouTube in 1 week in the US. It's a person that was not technically competent when he arrived here, but his determination, his willingness, his passion, his ethics, and his, let's say, he's the story of his brand. This is very important. This person has a story. If you have a story to tell when it comes to you and your product, you build the value of the company itself. You need to have a story.
They say that people don't buy your product, they buy your story. But when it comes to investors, is that the case, Andreas? Do you buy stories or do you buy products?
No, I totally agree with Moyses. It's all about the people, and it's all about the person that leads, that has the idea and comes to you. Of course, success in a business is a function of many things. I usually say that it's a multiplication function. So it's the idea times the plan times the execution ability times the team, of course, and times the funding. So if any of these is low, then the result, the success level will be low if you can scale the success on a scale. And if one of them, of course, is zero, then the success is zero. So that's why I said it's a multiplication function. But in the center of it, I totally agree that it's the people. It's the person that needs to have the drive, the passion, the skills. A lot of the skills you can learn. A lot of the skills that you like, you can hire. What you cannot do is, invent or lie about your passion, your story, why you want this product or this service to go to the market. This is what we're also looking for. You need to see. I know it's a cliche, but you need to see that sparkle, that craziness in the person's eye, that he can achieve things that even you don't believe that when they come to you, they can achieve, and they believe it. If they believe it, if they persuade you, it's a very emotional discussion sometimes we have with entrepreneurs, and apart from a financial investment, we also make an emotional investment. To the people that come to us, there has to be a chemistry. There has to be a lot of things, a lot of human issues. So if the person doesn't have the package, it's very difficult to persuade us that they've got an idea worth investing in. And if I may, I can tell you a story that happened in one of our presentations, company presentations events a few years ago. There were two companies presenting, 2 out of 4 companies presenting. One of them was a brilliant idea. Everybody was, preparing their checkbooks when they heard the idea. But the guy that was presenting was, as if he was bored presenting to us. It was he was lacking the package, like Moyses said. It was very obvious. And then there was another team that was presenting, two founders, that they were brilliant as a package, but the idea sucked, really. And this is where you sit back and you wish that you could change them. You could take that team and change the idea. What we did, what we tried to do, was to bring the two guys together and hopefully persuade them to join forces and pursue the idea that we liked, by injecting the other team into it. But we learned afterwards that that's impossible to do. There are cases where you see a brilliant idea, but you don't touch because the team behind it doesn't have the package. And you see an idea that it's not really very promising, but you could see that the people behind it can have the ability to change, to pivot their idea. They understand the market. They have a passion to introduce something to the market, and that's what you should be investing in.
Okay, yeah, we agree that it's all about the people, obviously. It's Dimitris. Yes, Moyses, you want to say something?
It's part of our process to spend time with them, travel together to events, and see and monitor. See, how do we cope together? How do they react to bad feedback? Are they accepting to bad feedback? To negative feedback? It's amazing to share the stories at the incubator with people that I engage on a daily basis. People that didn't start from the same start, let's say, money-wise, project-wise, technical capacity-wise, and if I start comparing the involvement of the character and their company itself, it's amazing to make the comparisons afterwards. And at the end of the day, it comes to the personality of the character and what is the drive to evolve.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a very rational person, but
please finish.
I'm a very rational person, and I like to see the figures and the numbers and the facts. But at the end of the day, what experience has shown so far is that a lot of things can change on the human factor. Mm-hmm. The human factor is the catalyst.
Good, great. So we have one question from Dimitris. From what I understand, if the solutions that come to you should have a European perspective or a global one, or if it's okay if we start locally. So what do you expect, Andrea, from the ideas that they come to you?
Yeah, we would expect both to come to us. There's a big difference. People who target the European or the global markets, they have to, really show us that they can actually deliver and compete in the European or global markets. So that's a little bit more difficult to prove or to do. In some cases, people come to us with a local with a service that can only be offered locally. That's okay too. It's a smaller investment. It's a smaller, but it's sometimes a safer investment for us to make. We know the market. We can help them introduce the product or the service in the market. So that's a smaller, safer, and acceptable investment or project for us. Of course, we're all looking for this big international or European project that will, give us the bigger returns on our investment. But you have to bear in mind that the global scene is much more competitive. It's much more difficult to enter. And this is one of the limitations that we admit to having is that as a network of investors, local investors, we do not have the experience to take a company with global aspirations and help them enter the global market. So we will need, this is where we believe that we can work well with other supporting mechanisms like accelerators, who hopefully do have the mentoring ability to take on more global projects and help them enter into the global markets as well. That's where we would feel more comfortable in working with an accelerator.
Okay, Moyses, how do you see the global perspective of the ideas?
We at Gravity, at least in Cyric, we are a technology-based company. So our DNA is to develop and file patents, technological solutions. It's a rule that although we support and provide mentoring to any local entrepreneur, in order to be able to join the incubation program, the perspective of the solution, idea, product, service should be global. And this comes to join together what we have discussed before, that for someone that wants to not just launch a normal business, for example, but a startup, has to understand the journey, the entrepreneurial journey of getting into the loop of the series of funding rounds in order to get to the... Cyprus is an excellent location for launching a pilot, for example, in a very controlled environment. But of course, once you develop something unique throughout a technology-based program, in order to also financially sustain this, you need to go global. So all the startups that are hosted in our program, Cyprus is, of course, the first option to deploy and test, but it's not the destination, it's just the beginning.
So, George, the gentleman told us what they expect from a startup. What about you? What do you expect from an investor at the moment, as Ioannis is asking, and what you may expect from an accelerator? I don't think you told us that you have been through the accelerators phase. So I think you're going next now, huh? Or maybe I'm wrong.
It really depends, right? As well, the entrepreneur journey is kind of interesting. I saw Yanni's question as well pop up in the chat, and I was thinking about it now while the guys were speaking from the other side. So I think a few things. If I'm just saying for me right now and for our company, like what I'm looking for now, it's things like, first of all, like you need to evaluate what you need to match up with the right incubator or accelerator. Okay, so if you need, if your primary need is a network, like access to people who are going to drive you forward, then the teams are quite open. The network that they have, they usually advertise it, look through the people, see if you think they're going to be of value. I also tend to, maybe this is a bias, I look more for proven programs unless like there's a fantastic deal, from a more unknown program. I think I flag generally accelerators that look for too much equity up front. Like Y Combinator asks for 7%, the premier institution in the world. Nobody should ask for more unless they're giving you, and YC give you 7% for 125K. It's hard, super hard to get in. But if, like, for me, like, that's the benchmark. Techstars do about 100 or something for 6, and they add a convertible note. Personally, I like accelerators now who are starting to balance out that value proposition, because when we went into an accelerator in 2013, we gave 8% for 25K, which is insane. If I was going there with something written on a piece of paper, like that's what I would expect now for, I'm being biased from my side. I know you need more, but I think that's just like, the way that we've evolved, the programs have evolved over time. I like accelerators that work with convertible notes. So some of them combine a little bit of equity for joining the program with a little bit more equity with a convertible note that then converts at a value later on when you have like a more accurate idea in the market of what you're worth when you raise like a price round. I would say from the investor side as well, like I was saying this before, like we usually think that the only thing we're lacking is money. And if I just had some money, I could make all this happen. There's so much more that you can do. And like I said, it's kind of like a trust exercise as well. You earn the other person's trust because look at everything I've put in, now you put in. Andrea mentioned before as well about an emotional process. So angel investing is very much an emotional process, I think, because you don't have, it's very rare that you can go with, you might have a polished deck, but your numbers often are going to be guesstimates, or they're going to be small pilots, or they're going to be, there's such an element of volatility of not understanding if your customer acquisition cost now is like, 10 euros and you've brought in 12 customers or 20 or 30 or 50. It doesn't mean that your acquisition cost is going to stay the same when you scale up to 1,000 or 10. So it's very much an emotional process. So I think that's important. Like when you, in any relationship, you need to match up well with the person. So if going back again to Moyses saying like the glint in their eye, that do they believe in what they're doing? That's when you'll match up with somebody as well. Like for us now, we're in a very kind of, maybe everybody feels they're in a niche space. We're in a space now where, like I said at the beginning, like we want to impact the future of food, in the next like 20 years or so. I really want somebody to get that, to feel us, to understand where we're going, and for it to be 100%, they want to make money. That's what everybody, like either the end result or the byproduct of what we do is to make money. Like nobody's being naive and saying that's not a purpose, but we also want to massively impact the spaces we're in. So finding that emotional connection, that matchup, and really understanding for me, from investors as well, that they understand the space and what we want to do. And a final thing on investment is also, it doesn't mean it's one person, right? So you can structure your round as well, like pursue maybe an early stage VC venture capital firm that's going to put in maybe even the bulk of the money, and they'll have less involvement, they'll be a bit less emotional, and then combine it with a couple of angel investors who are like the same kind of crazy as you and who want to drive the space forward. They might put a little bit less in, but you might balance that dynamic of getting in money and network and contact to the market and so on. So yeah, I could talk about this a lot, and if Gianni wants to connect at any other time, like there's a lot of things we can go into. But yeah, that's the short version.
You raised lots of questions here and lots of obviously. Moyses, we can't hear you. Your microphone.
It's what they say, getting invested is like getting married. It's a long-term relationship. And you need to cope with it.
With a divorce at the end, though, by the way.
Yes. And usually the question between us is not about the idea. Are they investable? Is he investable? Is she investable? This is what we are asking. It's not about the product. And I'm sure that Mr. Andreas, which is more experienced in this, there are the thematic investors and the impact investors, as they call them, that, for example, George, which is, to my opinion, the happiest person here to be vegan startup on Cygnobempty night. There are people that share his dream and they are more interested not to make profit, but to invest on the impact. There is even this category of investors.
Please, Andreas.
Yes, I'm very much not a vegan, George. But the reason I raised my hand is I know this is a bit peripheral to the discussion, but because I have recently invested in an F&B group that owns currently 3, we're on to our 4th restaurant, and we're thinking about certain projects like kitchen cloud and things like that, I would really very much like to talk to you offline, of course, about your project. So this is, real communication between entrepreneur and investor happening live on the show.
Okay, good, great. So let's say that startups are also interested of what is the cost in the services you're offering. Again, I'm going to go through Moyses first because it's the earlier phase. So let's say that the last year's winners of JA who just had one business plan, not very detailed, and one, I don't know if I could call it minimum viable product. Maybe it was something more simple than this, but they want to come to you. What happens next, and how will you charge them?
Okay. There is no straight answer to that, but typically what happens is the acceleration part and accelerators in general, George knows, they get a small percentage in return of the service. And of course, what they promise after the rapid validation is a potential investment, and this is how their business model is set. In our case in Cyprus, and because of the situation that we are into, a technology-oriented company, we cannot say a priori, let's say, that there is a specific amount. Roughly, I can tell you that for every case that comes into the incubator, we need to together proceed to the pre-money evaluation, assess the technology, assess the team, assess the potential, evaluate the technology and the potential of the technology, and come up to a quantified proposal. For example, what we see in front of us is approximately X amount of €1,000. We can help you with providing the in-kind support and the cash summing up to this percentage, which corresponds to this amount of support. Just to mention, for the last 2 years, we managed to raise approximately €2 million for the startups that are already in our program, and that was not part of any initial deal, but there is no straight and easy answer to say there are startups that we have less than 5% ownership, let's say, and there are startups that we have up to 40%. So it depends genuinely and purely on the technology readiness level, on our contribution, both in kind and cash, the potential of the technology, and it's something that we all sit down and agree together.
Okay,
I don't know if I covered the question.
I don't know if they would like to hear to some certain amounts, but I think it's fair to explain that it depends. Okay.
It has to depend, to be fair with everyone. I mean, not everybody starts from the same place, and not everyone has the same needs and same roadmap in technology.
Okay, good. Andreas, what about you? I mean, what is the cost of a company coming there? Of an idea, maybe.
Okay. Let me explain the process that somebody has to connect with us and deal with the investors. So the whole process starts from submitting to us an executive summary. It's a 3-page, not more than 3-page executive summary, then which is reviewed by our evaluation committee. And if the evaluation or investment committee considers that the idea falls within the priorities of our current priorities and current appetite of our investors, then we invite the entrepreneurs in for a meeting, a face-to-face or now a digital meeting. In that meeting, we try and get more information and get to know the entrepreneurs better. And if we like what we see and what we hear, then we will invite the team to, in one of our company presentations events, to present and pitch their business plan in front of all our members. We help the companies and the teams prepare for this presentation and this pitching event. Once they pitch, then what we do is, and if there are interested investors, we undertake all the negotiation process between the investors and the entrepreneurs. And if there is a positive outcome of that, then we undertake all the process of getting the paperwork ready, because there's a lot of paperwork to prepare. And once the money goes from the investors to the entrepreneurs, then we charge a 5% finder's fee. So this is the, we charge only when there is a success at the end. The rest of the process is completely free. We can't hear you, Antigoni.
I was saying that this is very important information, because also myself, I wasn't sure of what is the cost and the charges that different accelerators, incubators, and any other agents charge. I know that there are accelerators that are under different companies or other umbrellas who are funded anyway, so the whole journey is actually free, but there is always a cost when you get to the end, I suppose, for the investment phase. So I'm gonna have one last question before I think we should summarize the whole thing at the moment. But I have one last question. Here in Cyprus, do you think that we are at a phase where the accelerators, incubators, and all the other stakeholders are really doing a difference, are really making a difference? What do you think, Andreas? I mean, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem of the island, I mean.
Yes, like I said at the beginning, there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to do to increase the ability of the ecosystem to produce quality businesses that bring benefits to all stakeholders. Because everybody has to, everybody benefits from successful businesses, starting from, of course, the entrepreneurs, the employees of the company, the economy as a whole, and of course the investors at the end of the day. And successful businesses generate more successful businesses. So it's a big cycle that needs to turn positive. It's currently not there yet. There's a lot to be done, and we see initiatives. We see a lot of initiatives currently from the government, and I will insist a little bit on that point. Maybe I should have been on the next panel where the chief scientist would have been on. I'll make sure that I will be, at least as an attendee, to ask questions or make suggestions. Although I've told them many times my views, but I see a lot of initiatives from the state still going in the direction of funding the businesses, the startups. I think a lot of attention needs and funding and resources needs to be diverted in the supporting mechanisms like the accelerators, the angel networks, other organizations and mechanisms that support the process of taking the startup from an idea to a successful business, because we still see we're all trying our best, but unless you gain the experience and you inject the ecosystem with experienced resources, which can only be done at a big cost, and unless this is funded, that will never happen. to break that vicious cycle. However much money you put into the businesses at the early stage, you will end up, creating lifestyle businesses where people get money, get a salary, reach a stage where money runs out, and then you go back to the beginning and throw some more money to recycle some of these founders and some of these entrepreneurs to start another business and end up have the same fate. Unless you have an ecosystem and support an ecosystem that really can take these entrepreneurs by the hand from the early educational stage until the end of the business journey, unless you support and you throw resources into this process, then it's going to be very difficult for Cyprus to break that vicious cycle.
Moyses, what's your opinion on this? Do you really make a difference?
I think that the results of the ecosystem's work are out there. There are companies that are making profit, that are employing people, that are contributing to the local economy. And this result is the actual answer to the question. Of course, we are not perfect. We are still learning. There is a lot to be done. But even if we take by example the case study, the reason that accelerators and incubators were initiated from the first place, which is from the startup concept back in the 60s, it was because for the companies to develop their own products, they had to follow very bureaucratic processes and lots of budget to the R&D departments. And then suddenly everything shifted. The internet came in, technology booming. Everyone has a laptop of 300 euros. They can start develop a product. So all this sudden change in the industry and taking something almost designed, almost ready from the industry, and with acceleration and incubation and the injection of knowledge and experience in between, I think that it provided the very solid foundations to what we call innovation ecosystem. And I believe, short answer, that yes, accelerators, incubators, investors, they do make difference, but of course we need yet to reach the expected maturity level that we want. We can see that Cyprus, we have been investing in very traditional, let's say, for example, I don't want to label, just saying, very traditional and old industries, for example, tourism, and because the sun is still there and the sea is still there and it's still sunny and everyone is coming, we were not interested to invest in injecting these technologies or developing new companies to enhance our product, to make a better offering of our product. And look where we are now. If we made this conversation 10 years before, and we realized, all of us here, that we had to invest in more Cypriot companies developing technological products and services and employing more people and injecting all this talent and knowledge into the market, not only in Cyprus and beyond, then today we would see the real impact of these initiatives now. I wish in 10 years from today we can have the same conversation and get the real impact from the today's, let's say, decision-making processes that are done in Cyprus, to see what would be the impact, the actual impact of incubators, accelerators, entrepreneurs, investors, etc.
Okay, good. And I'm going to give the word to George for one last comment on if you think that accelerators are really making a difference in the island, and if you have felt this difference when you were going through.
No, I think the short answer is, I think they're definitely making a difference, because with and without is a big, like we're talking, night and day. It's a huge thing. 7 years ago, there was not even like a free co-working space. You know, you couldn't go and sit somewhere and stick up a laptop and meet somebody and talk about an idea. So, you know, I mean, even if you said, you know, not even like infrastructure and network, and just said literally do free co-working spaces, make a difference with one person who can give you a bit of advice every now and again. I mean, it would make a difference. But I get what both the guys are saying, and also like with Andreas saying, I agree that money needs to come into infrastructure as well. I also really think that shouldn't come out of money. That should be a bigger part of the pie. So I like from my side, I mean the entrepreneur side, I think that it's really healthy for people to make mistakes, and as long as they learn. So it's that thing where if you make mistakes and learn from them, you know, mistakes, and, you know, when we celebrate failure, that stuff is good. It means something. But if you keep making the same mistake over again, then, you know, you have to look at yourself. But the overall.
We lost him.
Hello, I'm back. Am I back?
Hi. We're listening to you.
Yeah, sorry. So just, I guess, wrapping up is like I think there's a lot more, I'm going to echo stuff, like there's a lot more we can do. I think we're in a good place. Like we're starting, if we compare 10 years ago to 5 years ago to now, there is some gradual increase, like in activity and benefit of what's going on. But I do really think like there's a lot we can still do. To the question you asked, that it's positive. But I also like, so this isn't to also promote one thing over the other, but I like the targeted approaches, right? So like, let's say opportunity, because Moyses here, like the tech angle. So Gravity does one thing and they try to do it really well. I think at the beginning of accelerators and incubators here, everyone was trying to do, it was like events preceded accelerators and incubators. Everyone wanted to do something that would help someone, but everyone was doing the same thing. And maybe if we kind of source our resources into like, more concentrated efforts, it might help more. But we're in a good place. We're in a better place than we were yesterday. And there's a lot, I think, that can still be done going forward, for sure.
And there is one last question for you, George. What do you look for in an investor? I mean, why do you choose X over Y?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I kind of touched on that earlier. I guess if you're fortunate enough and amazing enough to be in the position where you're choosing over like a list kind of thing, then you've done something really right. I think again it comes to self-evaluation. Like sometimes you might not love what's in front of you, but you need to evaluate what you need. So if money comes first and money's on the table, then generally, as long as it's coming from a place that you can validate, then you take it, right? But all the usual things go on top of that. It's like, does the person understand, the mission and where you want to take the company? What can they offer above money? Like, is it connections, their network, their technological know-how and so on? Can they help you develop on the product side? Can they help you develop on the business side? It's a lot of things. And then just like the most wholesome thing is just like, again, going back to what the guy said, it's the vibe. It's like, how does that person feel to you? Do you feel like, this is someone you want to get into a relationship with? Because it is that for at least a couple of years. Even to mess something up, you need a couple of years. So usually, so you're going to have to be with each other along that ride. And so, yeah, it's these things, human stuff, like basic relationship stuff, I think, over and above, the value that's created by the other stuff that they offer. Yeah.
Great. I'd like to thank you all for a very interesting discussion. I think that JA participants would love to hear this conversation. And maybe I will invite you in the future to have the same one, to explain that above all is the person, the team, and the passion. For myself, I think this is what I got today, to try to explain to the kids that it's all about passion and feel passionate about what they want to create. And what we always say, they should always have something ethical, that an ethical mindset, that they want to make this world a better place for everyone. So I'm going to give the word to Marios to wrap up the discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thanks, everyone. First of all, the speakers for the great discussion, for the really valuable information given. I'm sure this is a conversation that will never end, but unfortunately we've got a limited time. Thanks, Antigoni, for the great moderation of the panel, and a big thank you to the attendees that participated in the discussion. I'd love to invite everyone at our next event, which will take place on the 11th of March, which is a week from today, next Thursday. It's going to be the third and the last part of the trilogy Accelerators and Angels, where we are going to have Nicolas Mastroiannopoulos, the chief scientist, Stavriana Kofteros, co-founder and chair of Startup Cyprus, and Panayotis Filimis, the CEO of Cyric. These are going to be our panelists, and we are going to discuss about the next steps in terms of accelerators, incubators, and investors in the Cypriot entrepreneurial ecosystem. So see you all at our next event. Thanks again for joining us tonight, and keep innovating.
Thank you, Maria, for this opportunity.